What happens when a building is left to rot? When the last light is switched off, the final door slammed shut, and nature begins to reclaim what was once alive with human activity. In the UK, we have hundreds of such places. Hospitals where patients once walked the halls, schools where children's laughter once echoed, grand estates where families lived for centuries. But some of these abandoned buildings carry something more than just memories. They carry stories of the unexplained. Welcome to the most haunted abandoned buildings in the UK. Bank Hall, Lancashire. Deep in the Lancashire countryside lies Bank Hall, a once stately Georgian mansion, now a ghostly shell of its former self. Built over 400 years ago, its crumbling walls hold centuries of history and secrets far darker than the decay you see today. The original house was constructed in 1608 by the Banastra family, wealthy landowners who shaped much of the estate's early history. The hall was extensively remodeled in the 18th century, evolving into a grand Georgian mansion with elegant architecture and sprawling gardens. During World War II, Bank Hall served a different purpose. Requisitioned by the military, it became a training facility for soldiers preparing for battle. But after the war, the family could no longer maintain the estate, and by the late 20th century, the roof was removed to avoid property taxes, hastening its ruin. Today, the house stands roofless, overgrown and forgotten, yet whispers of its past refuse to fade. Paranormal activity at Bank Hall has been reported for decades, especially as the building fell into ruin. Urban explorers, amateur ghost hunters, and restoration volunteers have all described chilling, inexplicable encounters. The clock tower, which once dominated the skyline, is said to be home to a ghostly figure, tall, formless, and always watching. Multiple witnesses have claimed to see this figure darting between windows or looming silently behind them when they're alone. One volunteer, helping with the early restoration in the 1990s, recalled a freezing chill that followed him up the spiral staircase, even though it was summer. When he turned, he saw nothing, but felt breath on the back of his neck. Later, Bank Hall was used by the Women's Land Army. There's speculation that soldiers were temporarily stationed on the grounds, and that a fire or accident occurred involving one of the outbuildings, though official documentation is scarce. Some reports speak of burnt smells in the air on certain nights, with no visible source. Shadowy, uniformed figures have allegedly been seen standing in doorways or walking silently across the courtyard, then vanishing. One former land volunteer claimed she heard desperate knocking on the inside of one of the rooms. When opened, no one was there. Local history reports that during the 1700s, a young woman who was betrothed against her will was locked inside the tower room of Bank Hall after trying to elope with a servant. Some say she starved to death or fell from the tower trying to escape. A full-body apparition often seen around the central staircase and tower is believed to be this woman. Visitors describe sudden dizziness, an overwhelming sense of panic, or hearing faint sobbing when near the upper floors. Paranormal teams have recorded EVPs near the tower of a woman whispering, quote, "I waited, but he never came." During early architectural assessments in the late 20th century, surveyors noted what appeared to be a sealed-off room behind a brick wall, not shown on any floor plans. It was allegedly hidden behind a bookshelf and filled in sometime during the Victorian era. Locals say that after the wall was discovered, strange activity increased. One restoration volunteer claimed to hear chanting or low muttering from that wing of the hall. Tools and personal items would be rearranged or go missing, always turning up near the blocked doorway. One night, watchmen reported hearing rhythmic knocking coming from the other side of the wall, in threes, but no one was there. There are also mentions in local oral histories and restoration groups of a young child, possibly a member of the Legg or Fleetwood family, dying from illness or accident in the 19th century. Multiple visitors and paranormal groups have reported hearing childlike laughter turning into screams or sobs in the overgrown gardens. Some report the sound of a skipping rope dragging across stone, or the feeling of a small cold hand brushing against their own. One medium claimed the spirit of a lonely child lingers there, still waiting for her mother. A now vanished upstairs bedroom, once adorned with tall standing mirrors, was rumored to have been the site of an aristocrat's descent into madness in the late 1800s. He reportedly became obsessed with reflections, speaking to them, and claiming he saw, quote, a version of himself with no eyes. Restoration volunteers have seen fleeting faces in windows and reflective surfaces, but not their own. Some report overwhelming dread when filming or photographing in certain upper rooms, especially near broken mirror shards found during restoration. A psychic once claimed there is a mirror portal in the house where a malevolent entity watches, mimicking visitors' movements but slightly off. There are also reports of a woman who died in a fire on the property, possibly a kitchen worker or guest. While no firm records confirm it, the intense burn damage to certain wings, including the clock tower, suggests fire incidents did indeed occur. Witnesses have seen a glowing red apparition, a woman with blackened skin and hollow eyes, drifting down hallways and leaving behind a sharp smell of smoke. Sudden temperature spikes, rather than drops, are reported when she appears. She is said to whisper, "It's too hot. I can't breathe." They say buildings remember, and at Bank Hall the silence between the bricks speaks louder than words. Not every shadow is cast by light, and not every voice comes from the living. Ruffham Hall, Suffolk. In the Suffolk countryside stands one of Britain's most tragic and haunted ruins, Ruffham Hall. This isn't just any abandoned manor house. In September 1940, a single German bomb changed everything, creating not just a ruin, but what locals believe to be one of England's most actively haunted locations. What makes this place truly terrifying isn't just its violent destruction, but the phantom manor house that appears and vanishes along nearby roads. The famous Ruffham Mirage that has been witnessed for over 150 years. The story of Ruffham Hall begins in the medieval period when the manor was one of many properties possessed by the powerful Abbey of Bury St. Edmunds. After the dissolution of the monasteries, the estate was granted to Thomas Howard, the third Duke of Norfolk, before being acquired by the influential Drury family who held it for over a century. By the outbreak of World War II, Ruffham Hall had become a symbol of English country life, a peaceful retreat far from the chaos of modern warfare. The estate was situated dangerously close to RAF Ruffham, a crucial airfield used by the United States Army Air Forces, but residents never imagined this proximity would seal their home's fate. On the night of September 23, 1940, at precisely 1:05 a.m., the unthinkable happened. A German Luftwaffe bomber, likely targeting the nearby RAF Ruffham airfield, dropped a massive 2,000-pound bomb that struck Ruffham Hall with devastating accuracy. The bomb exploded in the cellars, creating a catastrophic blast that destroyed an entire wing of the building, collapsed multiple floors, and brought down chimneys and roof sections in a thunderous cascade of destruction. The damage was so extensive that the hall was declared beyond repair, making it the only country house in Suffolk lost to direct enemy action during World War II. Rather than rebuild, the family made the haunting decision to leave Ruffham Hall exactly as the bomb had left it, a frozen moment in time, a war memorial made of shattered stone and broken dreams that has been slowly reclaimed by nature for over 80 years. The most famous and documented paranormal phenomenon connected to Ruffham Hall isn't at the ruins themselves, but on the road between Bradfield St. George and Ruffham Green. For over 150 years, predating even the bombing, witnesses have reported seeing a complete, undamaged Georgian manor house appear suddenly behind ornate iron gates, only to vanish completely within seconds. The first recorded sighting dates back to 1860, when local resident Robert Palfrey witnessed a large red brick double-fronted house behind ornate iron gates that disappeared in a blink of an eye right in front of him. Decades later, his great-grandson reported the exact same phenomenon while walking the same stretch of road with his family. What makes this apparition truly disturbing is its consistency. Multiple witnesses describe an identical house, complete with lit windows, well-maintained gardens, and the sounds of a busy household. Horses' hooves on gravel, voices calling to each other, and the clatter of carriages. Some witnesses report seeing figures in Victorian dress moving behind the illuminated windows before the entire vision vanishes, leaving only empty countryside. Modern paranormal investigators have noted that the Phantom Manor appears to be a memory of either the original Ruffham Hall or perhaps a psychic projection of what the bombed hall might have been if it had survived the war, making it one of the most well-documented apparitions in British paranormal history. At the actual ruins of Ruffham Hall, the most terrifying phenomenon occurs between midnight and 2 a.m., when visitors report hearing the unmistakable sound of a German bomber aircraft approaching from the east, the same direction from which the fatal raid came in 1940. Witnesses describe the engine noise as distinctly different from modern aircraft, a deep, rhythmic droning that grows louder and more menacing as it approaches. The sound builds to a crescendo directly overhead, followed by the whistle of a falling bomb, and then a tremendous explosion that seems to shake the very ground beneath the ruins. Several ghost hunting groups have captured audio recordings of these phantom explosions, with sound equipment registering massive decibel spikes at the moment of the impact. The most personal and interactive paranormal encounter at Ruffham Hall involves the spirit of a caretaker who survived the 1940 bombing. Multiple visitors have reported encounters with an elderly man who appears near the most dangerous sections of the ruins, particularly where walls are unstable or floors have collapsed. This spirit doesn't simply observe. He actively warns visitors away from hazardous areas, speaking in a Suffolk accent and using phrases like, "Mind yourself there, that wall's not safe," or "Don't go in there, the floor's gone." What makes these encounters particularly unsettling is that the caretaker appears completely solid and real until the moment visitors try to thank him or ask questions, at which point he simply vanishes. The most disturbing account came from a photographer in 2018 who was exploring the ruins for a historical documentation project. He reported that the caretaker spirit not only warned him away from a dangerous section, but physically grabbed his arm and pulled him back just as a loose stone fell from exactly where he had been standing. The photographer described feeling a firm, cold grip on his arm and hearing the spirit say, "I couldn't save the house, but I'll not see anyone hurt here." When the photographer turned to thank the man, he found himself completely alone among the ruins, with only the sensation of cold fingerprints remaining on his arm. fingerprints that were still visible in photographs taken immediately afterward. Another apparition frequently reported in the broken corridors of Ruffham Hall is that of a wartime nurse believed to have been killed in the bombing. People have reported seeing her around twilight. She is said to point at witnesses before floating upwards into sections of the ruin that are inaccessible. Ruffham Hall may lie in ruins, but its story is far from over. The silence of its broken walls is deceiving. If the whispers are to be believed, something still lingers there, watching, waiting, and reminding all who enter that some places are never truly abandoned. Liverton New Build, Northamptonshire. Standing frozen in time in the Northamptonshire countryside is one of England's most mysterious abandoned buildings. Liverton New Build, a Tudor lodge that has remained unfinished for over 400 years. This haunting shell of Elizabethan grandeur was meant to be a testament to faith, but instead became a monument to tragedy and betrayal. Liverton New Build was designed around 1604 to 05 by Sir Thomas Tresham, a wealthy Catholic gentleman who had publicly committed to Catholicism in 1580. For over 2 decades, he had suffered religious persecution under Elizabeth I, facing repeated fines and imprisonment for his faith. Despite his mounting financial troubles, Tresham began construction of this ambitious garden lodge. The building was designed in a cruciform shape, a bold declaration of his Catholic beliefs during a dangerous time for English Catholics. The building was meant to be 3 stories high with elaborate gardens, but fate intervened tragically. Sir Thomas died in 1605, his fortune exhausted by persecution. That same year, his eldest son Francis Tresham became involved in the infamous gunpowder plot alongside his cousins. When the plot was discovered, Francis was arrested and died in the Tower of London on December 22nd to 23rd, 1605, from natural causes. Work on Liverton New Build stopped immediately. The building has remained exactly as it was when the builders laid down their tools over 400 years ago. The Tresham family's Catholic connections led to their estate being sequestered during the Civil War in 1649, sealing the fate of the unfinished lodge forever. What makes this abandonment unique is that the building looks as though the workers simply vanished one day. Tools were left where they fell, stones remain where they were placed. The most frequently reported and unsettling ghostly encounter at Liverton New Build is the sighting of a long-faced, bearded man who appears at one of the upper windows. What makes this particularly chilling is that there are no floors in the building, yet witnesses consistently report seeing this figure clearly positioned where the second floor should be. The apparition is believed to be Sir Thomas Tresham himself, still watching over his incomplete masterpiece, forever waiting for the work to resume. The paranormal activity also extends far beyond the building itself. The elaborate gardens and surrounding grounds are reportedly haunted by multiple spirits. Visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures moving between the ancient trees of the Elizabethan orchard and strange lights flickering in the darkness where the planned garden features were never completed. The terraces and earthworks seem to hold their own supernatural energy. Strange orbs have also been photographed in this location, as well as in the structure itself. In the early 2000s, during an overnight stay, a local paranormal group claimed to have seen a stone archway, quote, "sweat a dark, rust-colored fluid resembling old blood. The substance was gone by morning, with no trace. Samples were never collected. Some speculate it's connected to martyrdom symbolism, as Sir Thomas Tresham was obsessed with Catholic suffering and coded religious imagery. In other rare but terrifying reports, people have described black, fast-moving shapes that crawl or slither just out of direct view, low to the ground, but humanoid in outline. They vanish when looked at directly, but often reappear in peripheral vision or reflected surfaces like phone screens or sunglasses. Some visitors describe a horrifying sensation near the lodge's central chamber, as if the world drops away beneath them, a kind of psychic vertigo. People speak of a momentary blackness, a pulling sensation in the chest or stomach, like being drawn into a tunnel. It's believed this occurs at the geometric center of the cruciform layout, possibly where a spiritual nexus or energy convergence exists due to the lodge's heavy religious symbolism. There was also a disturbing report from an urban explorer in 2016 who was using a reflective drone lens. The drone's footage briefly showed a fully intact interior, tables, chairs, lit torches, despite the ruin being empty and roofless. A human figure was visible in the reflection, but not in real life. It appeared robed, with hands raised in a gesture of prayer, or possibly ritual invocation. A few witnesses claimed to see black flowers blooming briefly in the grass or stone cracks, appearing for moments and then vanishing. This could be tied to a local belief that the land is stained by the unfinished promise of the building and the blood of martyred Catholics. One woman claimed the petals whispered to her when she knelt near them. Some visitors wearing Bluetooth headphones or using audio equipment experience violent feedback, sudden static, or even whispered phrases piped directly into their ears. A paranormal investigator claimed he blacked out for nearly 12 minutes after his equipment spiked violently. His footage shows him walking in circles, whispering Latin phrases he didn't understand. Two paranormal investigators on separate occasions both reported what is termed the stigmata sensation. Sharp, sudden pains in the palms and feet, followed by numbness or tingling, classic locations of crucifixion wounds. Symptoms lasted minutes, with one person requiring medical attention for intense pressure in both hands. The lodge is heavily embedded with Christian symbolism. The building itself forms a cross. Some believe highly sensitive individuals may inadvertently channel psychic residue of devotion, suffering, or martyrdom. Time forgot Liverton New Build, but something within its walls did not forget time. The prayers have faded, the builders are long gone, yet the air still hums with unfinished intent. Whatever haunts this place isn't loud. It's patient, and it's still waiting for something, or someone. Whitby Abbey House. Built in the late 17th century, Whitby Abbey House began its life as a private residence, constructed from the salvaged stones of the original abbey, which had been left in ruins following Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries in the 1500s. Over the centuries, the house was home to wealthy landowners, scholars, and even housed the Abbey Headland School for a time. But despite its scenic setting, the building seemed cursed by a cold, heavy atmosphere. As time wore on, tenants came and went, rarely staying long. By the mid-20th century, the house was fully abandoned. Now standing empty, its windows like blind eyes staring out over the North Sea, Whitby Abbey House has earned a dark reputation of its own, one whispered about by locals, paranormal investigators, and frightened visitors alike. Perhaps the most well-known spirit said to haunt the house is that of a young woman, seen standing motionless at the top-floor window, her face pale, her eyes hollow. She's often spotted at twilight, staring out over the sea, then vanishing before anyone can reach her. Some believe she was once a teacher at the Abbey Headland School who took her own life after the death of a student. Others claim she was a nun before the Reformation, her life cut short in the brutal purges that followed. A tall, shadowy figure in monastic robes has also been seen gliding silently through the house's darkened corridors. Witnesses claim it has no face, just darkness where features should be. It's often accompanied by a wave of oppressive air, causing headaches, nausea, and even sudden nosebleeds. This spirit is believed to be one of the monks who refused to renounce his faith during the Reformation. Some say he was walled up alive. A woman visiting the site in the late 1990s claimed to see a light in one of the windows and heard muffled voices. As she drew closer, she said she saw a classroom, desks, children, a teacher, all illuminated in a warm yellow glow. The scene flickered and vanished completely. The room she saw had been stripped bare decades ago. There is also a discolored stone near the entrance of the cellar. Investigators have reported it becoming wet and red during certain conditions resembling blood. No scientific cause has ever been confirmed. Locals call it the Martyr's Stone and warn against touching it, claiming it causes vivid nightmares and phantom pain. In one of the rooms, believed to be the old headmaster's quarters, several visitors have reported taking photographs, which seem to only result in blurry, distorted images, regardless of equipment used. Some of the images, when digitally enhanced, have shown what appears to be a child's face pressed to the wall, where there should be only stone. People who have been standing at the bottom of the narrow servant staircase, which is now closed to the public, have reported a sudden pull toward the stairs, like being yanked forward, sometimes accompanied by dizziness or a momentary lapse in memory. A teenage ghost hunter blacked out at the top of the stairs and woke up at the bottom, face bruised and bleeding. His equipment was found several feet away, undamaged, but his recording had been mysteriously wiped. There is also a rare and chilling auditory event. A whispering voice, speaking in reverse, has been captured on EVP in the cellar. When reversed in post-production, the voice says, quote, "Stay buried." He sees. This voice has reportedly repeated similar warnings in at least 3 separate recordings over a span of 10 years. Whitby Abbey House stands forgotten in the shadow of the ruins, but it's in that quiet neglect that something darker seems to thrive. Time doesn't move the same within those walls, and those who step too close often leave with more than just a story. Some places don't just remember the past, they repeat it. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share and comment if you like the content. See you again soon for more disturbing reports of the paranormal.